Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Amy Colvin here, coming to you of the 30-day meditation challenge in honor of National Meditation Month. And I hope you are having a great week so far. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about hugging your inner critic. There's as the fact that we're humans, there is this huge duality within us. There's that masculine and feminine, there's the yin and there's the yang. And then within all of us also is the big self and the little self. So one way to look at that potentially is that the big self is that side of us that's gracious and kind and always knows the right thing to say. And then there's the little self, which is the small, snarky, critical self. I think we all know what that's about. So the phrase that I'll use is big self and little self. If you want to switch out that phrase to something that makes more sense to you, that's totally fine. But what I want to talk about is befriending that little self or hugging that inner critic. My longtime meditation teacher has said in the past that there's this fabulous Chinese phrase, in the eye of the dragon is a Buddha. And the eye of the Buddha is a dragon. And as we meditate and as we cultivate that connection with self, we end up not only growing that big self, but we also grow that little self right along with us. So one of the most effective ways to deal with that inner critic, is to recognize that we have choice around what our brain is doing at any time. And so if we find that there's that inner critic that's talking to us and doesn't let go, and yeah, know that we actually do have a choice. That's just a mental construct. We have the choice to be able to say, you know what? I think you need to slow that down or stop that. So there is that choice. The other thing about it, though, is often what happens is that we end up suppressing and denying that little self. We suppress and deny that inner critic, and it just sits around and festers. So what I suggest is trying to actually take a look at that inner critic. Consider the idea that you've just got this little self that's sitting right next to you, and pull it around in front of you when that voice pops up and say, hey, what in the world is going on with you? Why are you being so cranky, angry, whatever it is? So that first step is acknowledging it. And then actually you want to be kind to it. You want to say, hey, I hear you, I see you, I can't avoid hearing you, really. What in the world is going on? So if you subscribe to the idea that unskillful behavior comes from unmet needs, and we haven't talked about that much in this series yet, but we will down the road. If you subscribe to that theory, that unskillful behavior that you're not fond of, whatever, comes from unmet needs, then when you talk to when you engage with your inner critic, see if you can figure out what's really going on underneath there. More often than not, when we hear that critical voice piping up, there's something else. Is it scared? Is it lonely? Is it bored? There's something that's happening. And if we can just begin to look underneath all of that snarky language and figure out what's going on, then we can maybe create steps to alleviate this inner critic's discomfort. I teach this in my multi-week series, and I had a student a while ago talking to me about it. We'd gone through this lesson. The next week we came back, I checked in, and I said, hey, how did things go? Did you apply anything we talked about from last week to this week? And it was tax time. And he said that he'd been having a ton of trouble sleeping during this time frame. He was independent business person, really struggling with his taxes, didn't want to do them. And every single night, his inner critic, his little self, would wake him up saying, hey, it's time to do the taxes. Come on, let's get the taxes done. Let's do it. Let's do it. And he said that after learning of this idea of befriending your inner critic and really figuring out what's going on, he said that evening he went home and he imagined his inner critic just as a small version of himself, maybe even a childhood version of himself. And he said to that self, you know what? I know you're worried about the taxes. And I know that you wake me up every single night only because you're scared. So here's the deal. If you let me sleep tonight, I promise you that in the morning I'll be refreshed and we can start working on the taxes. So snuggle up with me. Here's some cocoa. Here's a little crayon book. Go to sleep and let me sleep. And he said for the first night in weeks, he slept all the way through the night. And I thought that was really a brilliant example. And all it takes is a little bit of detachment from feeling bombarded by our inner critic. And in that moment of detachment, we can look at it a little more objectively and say, hey, what's really going on? So let's keep that idea in mind, and we'll do a little bit of a meditation. So go ahead and find a comfortable position to sit, lie down, whatever suits you in the moment. You can either drop your gaze or close your eyes. And just begin by taking some nice deep breaths all the way into the belly. And just allow your body to relax. Maybe even with the exhalations, you might want to make a little bit of noise, just a big sigh. Allowing your forehead to relax, your eyes, your jaw, your neck and throat. And just relax into the idea that as a human being, you are filled with duality. You're a complex person, and as such, there are moments when you have greatness and kindness, and there are moments when you're just flat out snarky or cranky. And bring to mind a time when your inner critic was talking to you. You don't need to rehash the details, just bring an instance to mind. And consider the idea that that inner critic is just a little part of you. Imagine that that inner critic is your childhood you, suffering from some sort of distress. Perhaps it's angry or scared, lonely, hungry. And extend out love to that little self, that inner critic, just as you would extend out love to any small child that you see in distress. Just extend warmth and kind wishes, offering an opportunity to hear and see and understand what's going on with that little self. Fully acknowledge whatever concerns that inner critic has underneath the surface, and embrace that little self, embrace that inner critic, and let it know that you'll do your best to help resolve its challenges, just as you would extend compassion and kindness and assistance to any little person in your life. And now imagine setting this little self, this little inner critic, down by you, not suppressing, not denying, just give it a seat right next to you and invite it to be with you as you move on through your day. Let that little self know that it doesn't have control over your thoughts, but allow it to feel incorporated, because truly that inner critic is just a part of you. And then imagine moving on through your day with kindness and clarity, and freedom from that critical inner voice. And release all of the imagery and just simply focus for a few breaths on that space in the center of your body, a couple finger widths below the belly button. Sometimes known as the sea of chi or the dantian. And as a parting thought before we end the meditation, just reconsider the idea that in the eye of the dragon is a Buddha, and in the eye of the Buddha is a dragon. And let's go ahead and end this meditation. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in this morning. Brian, Karen, Cindy, it was great to see you here. And have a fantastic week, or fantastic day. And I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 6:30. Good luck working with your inner critic today. And I would love to hear in the comments if you found that this idea is effective for you. So, best wishes. Take care. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.